Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to throw the hats. Hello there, welcome back to another Bolts Analysis. My name is Chris, and we're looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning and indeed the rest of the NHL. And last night was not a good night for Tampa Bay because two things. Boston won, Florida won. No, not allowed. Don't like it. Do it again. Both won close games. We now have games in hand on both, so I guess it's not as bad as it could be. It's just one of those where, once again, Chicago needed them to just not play like that. Or at least play as well as they did in the third period in the first and second. First and second period, Chicago were not on it. Chicago allowed Florida to do their thing. Frank Vatrano got 3 goals, got himself a well-deserved hat-trick. Florida were nipping at the heels the entire time. They played a good game. They got a little bit complacent later on, and sort of Chicago, as we know, can score goals, can get themselves lined up. Patrick Kane is going to punish you if you keep giving him opportunities. But in the end, it just wasn't quite enough. I mean, maybe Chicago get that third goal with 5 minutes to go as opposed to like a minute and a bit, then it might have been a different story, but it's a scoreline that I think in the end kind of flatters Chicago because they made a horrible start. It was nice to see the appreciation of Quenville, though. I thought that was good. You could see a smile on his face. He couldn't help himself. So that was one result. And then Boston, to their credit, went into the T-Mobile Arena, I think that's what it's called, in Vegas, and won 3-2. So that's a good win for Boston. That puts them on 70 points, which is pretty healthy. So they're 8 points ahead of us now. But I think we have 3 games in hand on them. So we can still close the gap. It's just we need to keep up the wins. So yes, I guess it's not so bad a night for us as it was for Toronto. For a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, last night was awful. Because Boston are now very far ahead. I think it's a 13-point gap between Boston and Toronto, which is not good at all. And there's also a 4-point gap between the Leafs and the Panthers. And the Leafs can't do anything about that until after the All-Star break. So for Toronto, they will now need to go to Nashville and win. They can't lose. It's getting to that stage now for Toronto because it's not just Florida pulling away. There were also some results last night that affected the wildcard standings. Carolina have now moved a bit further away. They won quite convincingly against the Winnipeg Jets, who continue to struggle to take off the wildcards. They're just there, Winnipeg. Just a little bit. No. It's another... It's 16 goals conceded in 3 games now. And the goals on their side seem to be drying up. So, issues all over the shop for the Winnipeg Jets. But Carolina looking like they've turned a little bit of a corner. That's two wins to go into the All-Star break. It's pretty good. Justin Williams is back. Things look relatively positive from a Carolina perspective. It gets worse if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Because Philadelphia won. So that's another team that sort of gained a bit of ground new. Philadelphia Flyers 3, Pittsburgh Penguins nada, which is a not necessarily surprising result, but definitely a surprising scoreline. I would have expected Pittsburgh to have done something in that game. To get shut out is pretty bad. It just seems like they had a bit of an off night, but the Flyers, again, showing that they're a contender. It's a competitive wildcard race this year when a team that's improved as much as Philly still isn't quite making the playoffs as it stands. Not quite. Very close, but not quite. So yes, not looking good for the Maple Leafs. And as for the rest of the Atlantic Division, I think Buffalo, Montreal, and definitely also in Detroit, you can forget it. I think playoffs this year, there's just too much of a gap opening up. And it does kind of look like the 2 wildcard spots are probably going to go to metropolitan teams. So, there's that to look at. Shifting over a bit more to the metropolitan, because another big game last night was the Islanders and the Rangers at the Rangers. And thank goodness the Islanders, they actually won. They worked out how to win a game. 4-2 at Madison Square Garden. And that means the Islanders are definitely in third until after the All-Star break, and isn't that a relief, because it's been a horrible run. And it's a win against the Rangers, which they hadn't done this season either. They looked like they were starting to throw it away a little bit, because they were up 4-0, and then sort of Rangers started to get back in it. But I think overall, if the Islanders play like that against most teams, they will be fine. Good fast start, get yourself 3 or 4 goals up, and, you know, even if the other team makes a bit of a fight back, you know, you'll win more than you lose if you start the games like that. I guess it's still a sign, though, the Islanders aren't quite... There's still something not quite right about the model of sort of being, you know, we'll score and we won't let goals in. It's like, well, clearly you will. It wasn't as bad as their collapse against the Capitals, but it's just something to bear in mind that sort of, you know, one win against the New York Rangers does not mean you're fine. You still have work to do. You are not in the playoffs yet. There's still a good, 2 to 3 months of hockey, so no complacency, please. And that's true for us as well. I think we need to sort of be mindful that we need to hit the ground running when we come back against Dallas on Monday night. Just because we're in a healthy spot, just because we're 5 points ahead of Toronto, doesn't mean a thing. Doesn't mean a thing. Yeah, it ain't over. Effectively, we're at not quite the halfway point, but near enough. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There are 2 games tonight. They don't really affect us that much. Columbus are playing Winnipeg. I expect a Columbus win. And Detroit and Minnesota are meeting up to see who's having the most miserable season. Spoiler, it's Detroit. But I suppose in a weird way, you could make an argument for Minnesota, because I guess Minnesota had a bit more hope going into this season, maybe, compared to Detroit. I don't know, there'll be a lot of misery in that building at the XL Energy Centre tonight. Yes, that's been another Bolts analysis. And tomorrow I'm going to start doing a general overview, and I'm going to look at the teams that aren't currently making the playoffs, that did make the playoffs last year, and sort of look as to why that's happening. I will start with Toronto and sort of move my way through the division and sort of look at the various teams. And then if I get time before the All-Star break finishes, I may even do some videos on teams that are making the playoffs, that weren't last year, and how they've managed to improve and what's that about. I think I'll definitely do something on the Panthers. Until then, this has been another Bolts analysis, and remember to get in the fast lane, Grandma. The bingo game is ready to roll.